We've made it. Rob Staton, we have finally made it to football season. There he is. We haven't talked in weeks, and Rob's back, and we've got football to talk about. The Seahawks Broncos coming up this weekend. Rob's weekly appearance brought to you by Superior Linen Service, family owned and operated since 1926. Big thanks to John and the folks there at Superior Linen Service. They are committed to delivering the highest quality products and service to the greater Puget Sound area. Get your free quote today at suplinen.com or give them a call at 253-2636. You can, of course, follow Rob on X there at Rob Staton, and then, of course, Rob Staton Football there on YouTube as well. You know what? You and I have spent the last 5 months making up storylines, okay? Making up content, because that's what we do when there's nothing football-related going on, but we've made it. We're here. Football season is back.
It's a good point. I mean, there's not actually been that much to get into, has there? And yet here we are. We've managed to get through all the way to the point that when we have a conversation next week, Puck, we'll be able to actually have seen what a game looks like with Mike McDonald. We'll actually be able to see what the linebackers are like, what Byron Murphy's like, all these things we've talked about, what the offensive line's going to be like. We've gone through months and months of just waiting for this moment, and here we are. So let's get on with it. Let's bring it on.
So good. So good. Are you, as we were recording this on Thursday, we are hours away, from the start of the NFL season. So for you, it's going to start 3 in the morning? No, 1 in the morning?
No, it's about 1:30. Yeah. 1:30 in the morning.
So
like that.
you stay up, right?
Oh yeah, staying up. So I don't have to. I don't have to rush in the morning. So I'm going to stay up and watch it, and then catch up on sleep tomorrow.
What are you excited for? Just I'm going to ask you a real overarching question. Excited for the season in general, Seahawks and just NFL themed.
Yeah, well, I think from a Seahawks perspective, Puck, this is the most excited I've been in a long time. Just because I felt, as many people did, that change was probably justified a few years ago, and now we have it. So for people like me, I feel like this is our time. We've been waiting a few years to see what a different coaching setup would be like with a lot of these players, and I'm fascinated to see what Ryan Grubb does with DK Metcalf, what he's going to do with Geno Smith, what he's going to do with Ken Walker, what is Mike McDonald going to be able to do with a lot of these defensive pieces, with this great defensive line. I'm very bullish about the Seahawks for the first time in years. And when I'm looking at power rankings, I read a power ranking this week with Mike Florio. Somebody else sent me a different power ranking in a WhatsApp group that I'm in that had the Seahawks in the same place, 22nd in the NFL. And I did a video about this the other day because people are saying, how are they 22nd? How can you be 16th in the draft, which means you were the 16th best team in the league last year, and regress 6 spots in a power ranking now, given everything that's happened since then? And I can only assume that people are saying it's because they've got a rookie head coach and rookie defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator. But for me, I think that's a major positive. I don't think that's a negative at all. I think it's a bonus for the Seahawks, and they should be better for all of these changes. So I'm looking forward to that new start for the Seahawks. And then from an NFL perspective, what am I looking forward to seeing? I'm looking forward to seeing if the Niners are going to regress. Are they going to take a step back? Because of all the we have a lot of different teams followed over here in the UK, Puck. San Francisco 49ers fans are by far the most irritated. So if they are going to have a season of regression, then bring that on. So I'm looking forward to that. And they're closely followed by, some of the other teams in the NFC that I think that the Eagles might take a step back. So I want to see if I'm right about that and whether they're not quite as good as people think.
Yeah, I'm intrigued about, the overall storylines, just going there for a second. The Niners intrigue me. And I talked to Mike Garafolo on today's show, and it's up there right now at pucksports.com and everywhere else. I know this is why, one, I'm not smart enough about the cap. Okay, let's establish that first. I was a communications major. Math, not my strong suit. So, you know how the coverage of football has changed here in the last 10 years, maybe less than 10 years, where we've got a lot of people on, and I'm not disparaging them, on social media that are cap experts, right? Yeah. And I've had Joel Corey on. I think you probably have talked to him before. It's a lot of it goes over my head when we start talking about the cap and money, this and that. And I just don't, for me, I don't get into it as much because I just, it's not entertaining, like sports talk to me. But the one element I always laugh about the cap is because I think it's fake. I think all of it's fake because we don't really know what the actual number is. We don't actually know the contracts because I said this to Mike, like the 49ers just keep signing people left and right to deals. And you're like, where's the money? Like, how do they do it? And then the cap goes up every year. You can always manipulate the cap. You can always manipulate and move money around to make things work. And the Niners do that. But, it's eventually it's like you can't pay everyone. And they've got a big one coming up next year. And that, to me, how this season goes for them, Rob, what I'm fascinated is how much do they value Brock Purdy? Because he's in line. He's going to be $60+ million. Think about that. Brock Purdy. That is just, that blows me away to think about.
Well, they're a very strange case, the Niners, because they had this unusual amount of throw. This is the thing that I don't find that appealing with the cap, is that you can throw money forward that you don't use. So the Niners are the beneficiary of having a big chunk of money that they're throwing forward at the minute. Like, for example, they are 33 million over the cap next year, but this year they're like way under the cap because they've thrown loads of money forward. But you can keep throwing it forward. So just because if you have a cheap year, if you have a down year where you're not spending a lot of money, that can benefit you years down the line. I just don't think that's very fair. So I don't understand the point of that. I think teams should be encouraged to use their cap, not stash it. And then from the Niners, I actually did a whole list of the things, Puck, that might lead to them having a bit of a down year. And I just wonder what you think about some of these.
Yeah, sure.
And Brock Purdy in a contract year is right at the top of the list because he's been talking about, I want to become more than just a game manager. I want to be like I want to take the next step. Is he going to force things a little bit? Because he knows that he's on the precipice of getting a $55-60 million contract if things go well. Is he going to not be Brock Purdy, emerging quarterback? Is he going to try and be Brock Purdy, superstar quarterback this year? So I think that's going to be interesting to see how he handles that. But the fact they've lost Eric Armstead on the defensive line, having already traded away DeForest Buckner, the defensive line's not as good. Dre Greenlaw's injured. You had the Trent Williams holdout. He's not done anything during training camp. Neither's Brandon Ayuk. Has that drama of players spending for the last few months focusing on money. Is that going to impact this team in a way that I think it did impact the Seahawks after they won the Super Bowl? Can they just keep going year after year after year, getting so close and then falling at the final hurdle in the NFC Championship game? You've had Ricky Pearsall getting shot last week, which will have an emotional, I'd think quite an emotionally draining experience on some of his teammates and on the coaches and on the staff. And they lost their defensive coordinator because he was useless, and they've replaced him with the guy who used to just sort of be on the sideline and you'd recognize his face for the Seahawks, but you didn't really know what job he was doing. So you kind of like, these are a lot of different things with the Niners that make you think, are they going to be as good? Now, they've still got a lot of very good blue chip players, but I just wonder, are we getting to, is this like, this is the year for them? It's either now or never, that next year when Purdy, if he gets paid or if they have to move on from him, that's when the turn's going to happen. That's when maybe this Shanahan era ends. Is it kind of like now or never for them? And I don't think you ever want to be in that position where it's now or never, especially when you've got a tough division, an emerging Seahawks, emerging teams in the NFC. I don't know. I don't think Super Bowl bust is ever a healthy place to be.
The reality they're in, right? The reality that the Seahawks were in certainly in a period of time there with Pete Carroll. And then I think back to the Seahawks, I'm just intrigued I can't wait to see, Mike McDonald match wits with these guys, right? Match wits with Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. That's just fascinating to me because, in this day and age of professional football, it's all the young hot head coaches are offensive coordinators. They all call the plays, right? You want that next thing. And the Seahawks kind of, they went Robert Frost. They took the path least traveled by, right? They went the other way, and they got the hot young guy, but they got the hot young guy on the defensive side of the ball to try and match wits with those guys. And I'm intrigued to see how Mike McDonald handles that, and and also how he handles his first year of being a head coach. He is, by all indications, and you talk to people, very hands-on with the defense. Clearly, he calls the plays. He's the defensive coordinator, but he also spends a lot of time with the defense and not so much with the offense. And I think that's something he's going to have to grow into, that he has to understand, and I'm sure he does, that he has to be the head coach of everyone, not just, one side of the ball. But, I thought of you a lot when when I saw all these comments from former players and current players come out, because this is exactly kind of what you talked about for months and months and months. And I never necessarily disagreed with you. It was maybe just not fully on board like you were, especially early on when we were even discussing the Pete Carroll future, and then they made the transition and let him go and to bring Mike Macdonald. But I'm sure you saw the clip of Richard Sherman from a few weeks ago saying, God, something was missing, for the last few years. And going out to camp and watching Mike Macdonald during camp, that edge is back. That competition is back. That tough guy football is back. Other veteran players have talked about it. The latest one, Jaron Reed, where he said, hey, man, I don't want to take any shots at anyone, but, it's different. It's more physical. It's more old school. It's funny, Rob, to hear these guys, past and present, talk about that how old is he, 36? Right? 30,
yeah, I think so.
Something like that?
36, 37.
The 36-year-old head coach be more old school in his approach than the 70-year-old guy who should be the guy that's more old school. But their comments align with what you were talking about.
Yeah, and I don't want to be too disparaging, but I actually think it's not really so much about old school, new school, and more about, I hate to say it, competency. I just think that this coaching staff, to me, seem the more on top of their brief almost. To hear someone like Jaron Reed, and look, it's one of those things when you say, I don't want to be too negative about the old regime, but and then you say something as quite brazen as, we're just now back to being a proper football team again. We are actually being physical, and we've got a bit of an edge again. You think, wow, that is quite a thing for somebody to say publicly. Maybe as Jeremy was saying, it was thinking, oh, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Oh, but it's too late now.
He kind of caught himself a little bit.
Yeah. So he's saying it, but I'm listening. I'm thinking, well, yeah, but we could all see this. I mean, like, the Seahawks were as soft as anything, against the Steelers. They became a really finesse team. So, but you were getting mixed messages like Carroll and Schneider and the coaches would come out saying, we want to do this, we want to run the ball, and we want to do all these things. Then you'd watch the team and you think, well, we're finesse as one of the more finesse teams in the league. Like, there's nothing that physical about the team. The Steelers with Mason Rudolph just came in and ran it down our throats. That's the kind of team that this Seahawks team would always say they want to be, and they were anything but. So then when you sort of see this team and you see them coming out, okay, it's a preseason game, and they're flying around and hitting everybody, and they're always around the ball against the Chargers, you think, yeah, that's what I remember the Carroll era was like at the start. That's back to that. The Cleveland, the first drive on offense, what do? Geno Smith comes down and goes, we're going to absolutely be really aggressive and throw it against the Browns, score as quickly as possible, and get the first off the field. Perfect. Defensively, flying around, people to get into the quarterback, there's pressure. You just feel like watching that team. And again, it was only one defensive drive. They played a bit more against the Chargers. You thought, I can see this team creating pressure, getting turnovers. It was almost like the last few years, I'm not being funny, it was almost a turnover was a rare thing in Seattle. Like, it used to be the thing in the LOB era. Yeah. So getting back to all of that, fantastic. Can't wait to see it. Hate to say it, but I've never been more relieved in this last week, Buck, because Pete Carroll seems to be doing about 17 different podcasts at the moment. And he keeps popping up and talking about the old era. And I'm thinking, I'm so glad that the Seahawks moved on.
What I don't, that you just brought that up. And I just, right when you brought that up, I didn't think about it until now that you had mentioned that. Because he has, it is interesting for Pete Carroll, who since he was now fired, because he was fired, since he was let go, he had gone dark. Nothing at all. And in the last less than a month, 3 weeks leading up to the season, he's now doing every interview. And there's part of me that doesn't like that, because now what he wants is attention on him leading up into the season. He did an interview. He was on our old station, my old station, KJR. He went on with Softy and Doug Baldwin. And then he has gone on with Marshawn Lynch's podcast with Gavin Newsom and then his agent. And it's just like now, right when we're getting
Yogi Roth as well. He did a whole bit with
Yogi
him.
Roth. There we go. So now, right before the season starts, he goes on to say, "Hey, I'm still here. Look at me." I don't know. And then I think there was I think it was with Softy and Doug Baldwin. Maybe it was one of the other ones. I just saw a little clip where I think I read it, or I think I listened to it, where he was just kind of dismissive. I've had no contact with him. I've nothing. it came off as, yeah, maybe like a poor sport to me. And listen, if you're going to go dark, go dark. Don't come out right before the season starts to be like, hey, I'm here. I want the attention on me. But that's kind of my perception of that. Yeah, and I didn't think about it until you just brought that up.
I thought about whether or not he's noticed that Bill Belichick is doing absolutely anything right now. I mean, It was announced yesterday that Bill Belichick has an Instagram account. So it does certainly seem as if Bill Belichick is doing everything he can to put himself in the spotlight so that when the next cycle of jobs come around, and he's trying to soften his image. I think he's very aware that teams don't want gruff old Bill Belichick coming in and being the incredible sulk every week in their building. So he's being more personable, and he's being quite cheery and happy when he speaks. And I suspect that when he's on the Manning cast, he's going to be cracking jokes and doing stuff like this because he wants teams to think, we want him. And I think Pete Carroll's maybe seeing that and thinking, well, maybe I don't think Pete is desperate to get back in, but I get the sense that he's open to it. He wants people to get in touch and offer him opportunities. So he has to put himself out there, because my assumption, as yours was, as I think everybody else's was, that Pete's done. And now just by appearing again, it's now, I am still here. And doing it this close to the season is the ideal chance for him to put himself in the spotlight. But it is a little bit of a distraction because people talk about it. And when he's talking about the bloody play with Marshawn again, I'm like, can we ever just have a break from this? Like, we don't need to be talking about that interception the week before Mike McDonald's first game.
Talk about it forever. Here's where I think the difference between, and then we'll get back to the Seahawks. Here's where I think the difference is between Carroll and Belichick. I think Belichick wants to coach again. I think Belichick needs to coach again. I think it's in his blood. I think he can't operate as a normal person unless he's coaching, grinding over film, and trying to scheme to find ways to cheat. That, I think he can't stop. I think he's got an addiction to it. I don't think Carroll does. I think Carroll has an addiction to being wanted and liked. And I think part of this is to be like, someone like me, someone offer me a job. I'm not going to take it, but I want to be offered. I think he's perfectly happy just retiring.
Do you also think that the way that it ended for him is also a bit of a, like, I don't want to go out like this, like essentially being fired? That his plan probably would have been to go out on his terms, and it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, for sure. I think he doesn't like it that way. I mean, I could see him reemerging at like I don't know if, like, I don't think a big college program, but like, I don't know, I'm just going to, a Sacramento State, just something small, where it's, he just does the whole culture thing again, and it probably works, but I'll, what is he, 70 something? I mean, I think he's accomplished everything he needs to accomplish. He's going to be in the Football Hall of Fame. He's accomplished everything, and got a house in Hawaii. I think he just wants to go out on the beach and just hang out. That's what I would do. I don't think he has anything more to prove.
I'd been doing that 20 years ago if I was him.
I know. There's not anything more to prove. Speaking of something to prove, DK Metcalf, what do you think he has to prove this year?
He has to prove that he is capable of delivering on the potential that we all know he's got, because DK Metcalf has been a very, very good player. Statistically, he's right up there. That you can't quibble with his stats. And even playing within a team that likes to suggest that it's more run-centric, as it was under Carroll, he was still putting up big numbers. But the thing is that I don't think he's ever been dominant. And you look at the player and you think he should be dominant. Mm-hmm. And there are players that are, Julio Jones maybe is a bit of an exception, but Mike Evans is an example. Mike Evans is not noticeably better in terms of the skill set that he has than DK Metcalf, but you can throw the ball to Mike Evans in Tampa Bay 1v1 and he will go up and he will get the football and he will do it consistently, and he seems to do it every time he plays the Seahawks especially. Now with DK Metcalf, I don't think he's ever got to that point. Like, he's very good at running past people, and he can be physical and he can make some amazing things happen, but he's never been that sort of 1v1 dynamo. You need a play, we're going to throw it your way, and even if you're covered, he's still going to do it. And I want to see a bit more of that from him. Now, I do think this scheme will help him. And I think Ryan Grubb, my hunch is that they're going to unleash him this year, Puck. That it's not just going to be, we're going to throw it his way a bit more. That I actually think in this scheme, they are going to find a way to make him potentially one of the top receivers. I'm very confident that in a few months' time we'll be going, he's just had a career year in a big way, and that he's going to be veering towards superstar. I think Grubb is going to do that for him. But that's what I want to see. I want to see him take the next step now. And he needs to do it now, because if there was ever a better time to have that year, it's right now with the money that the receivers are being paid. And he's going to want to get paid this offseason. So now is the time for DK to have an amazing year.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I mean, I just think that the things that I think Grubb is going to be able to do and try to do, and I think recognizing, and especially what you have in the last few years of what he was able to do at Washington and put certain guys in position, that's what it was all about with his scheme at Washington. Maybe they won't run exactly the same thing, but his scheme was, let's put our playmakers in the best position as possible, move them around. We're just not going to put them on one side of the field and just remain there. That just felt like the last few coordinators that this team had. That's exactly what they did. I think that you're going to see a guy that he's what career highs, I think 1,300 yards, which I think was his second season our second year in the league. I think he's going to be over 1,400 yards, 1,450, maybe creep into 1,500. I think this is the year he gets to 100 catches. He'll have double-digit touchdowns. I just think that, Rob, when he steps out on the football field with his skill set and his size, he should be the best player on the field almost every game. He's just too physically gifted not to be. And
I also wonder, Puck, I wonder what you think about this. I get the sense that although Tyler Lockett came out this week and said the first thing Grubb said to everybody in the offensive meeting room was, we are going to try and run the ball, and every team says that. Have you found it interesting that they've got DK, they've got Jackson Smith-Njigba, they brought Tyler Lockett back, and they've got Jake Bobo. They then go and try out Robbie Anderson for some reason. They brought D. Eskridge back. They signed Laviska Shenault to a contract that means that they couldn't really cut him. Like, they were kind of, because it was guaranteed, so he was kind of locked into the roster as soon as he signed it. And then this week they brought in Kadarius Toney for a visit. It seems to me as if they are looking for depth at receiver. They want a lot of good receivers. They want playmakers. And that maybe that is a hint towards, do you know what? 3's not enough. We feel like we need 5, 6 receivers that we can rely on that can put points on the board. And whether this is indicative of a very explosive passing offense that we're going to see, that is going to test teams all over the field with DK Metcalf as the focal point of all of that.
Yeah, maybe to a degree. I mean, maybe it's also commentary and what they feel about Tyler Lockett and just his injury situation. But I do think, I think, you go back and look, God, I saw the stat, I should have wrote it down. If you go back and look at the run pass percentage, I think it was on first down of Ryan Grubb at his time at Washington and his time at, and then you compare it the last couple of years with what Seattle did, right? And the perception would be what with Ryan Grubb? Pass first?
Yeah.
It's just the air raid. And then for the Seahawks, it was ground and pound.
Yeah.
The Seahawks actually threw the ball more than Grubb. I think the thing with him, and having watched him call plays also at Fresno, he's a guy that he will adapt to what he has and the strength of that offense, in that the playbook is expansive. Those times at Fresno State, he didn't have a Michael Penix and those wide receivers. They had 2 really good running backs, and they ran the ball, a lot, and they were physical. And then at times at Washington, when their backs were healthy, he would do it. And there was the middle part of the season where they were really their most explosive, when they had a consistent running game and they were pounding teams. But they had a quarterback that had an unworldly arm, receivers just running everywhere. Yeah. So he's like, why wouldn't I throw it a little bit more? But I just think for some Seahawks fans who maybe didn't watch Washington play, not many of those didn't, or Fresno State, when they were there, he's very multiple, and I think he'll adjust, and he has an embarrassment really of riches of offensive personnel. And he's got 2 really good running backs that he can use. And to your point about Metcalf, I also think Kenneth Walker's just, I don't know. I have a real good feeling about Kenneth Walker just kind of busting out this year.
Well, he has to, because he's another player that came into the league, with big expectation, very, very talented, physically amazing, everything that you need in a running back to be one of the best in the NFL. And we're 2 years in now. And the point of a running back is that you draft them for almost pretty much immediate impact, that you get that value on that rookie contract. And this is year 3. Oh. So we need to see it now. And I think you're right. I mean, look, when you list all those offensive players and you consider that the defense, in my opinion, personnel-wise, is better looking, and I love the D-line and the new coaching staff, I'm very, very optimistic about this year. I feel very confident about the Seahawks this Sunday. I feel very good about them looking at the schedule. There are some question marks, that offensive line, but someone was saying the other day that, I can't remember who it was, but you can coach around, like a good coach will work around some weaknesses on an offensive line. It doesn't mean that you're going to dominate opponents or that you're going to play exactly how you want, but you can work around certain things. And I don't know, I've just maybe got a bit more faith, and maybe it will end up being blind faith, that Grubb and Huff are going to come up with situations to help Geno Smith in this offense in a way that Waldron just couldn't.
I think Waldron was capable of doing it. It felt like to me, right, Rob, that Waldron just said, despite our offensive line, I'm just going to keep calling the same plays.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I think Grubb and Scott Huff will say, all right, well, maybe we're a little weak here. Let's do something. Let's take care of them. Let's throw. You watch them at Washington. They love their screen passes, and there's nobody in this city, in this country, in this world that loves a screen pass to a running back more than this guy. I have said it many times. The first 3 plays of every game would be a screen pass. I love screen passes, and we'll see. I mean, they.
How many yards in the passing game is Ken Walker going to get? Because I had a look at on the betting. They don't have much for us in the UK just yet, but I noticed that Ken Walker receiving yards was one of the things on there. So what we saying here? Do you think?
Let me see. Let me just give me a second. I want to pull up what he was, what he's been in his career here for just a quick second. I want to just see, because he hasn't. I don't feel like he's been much of a weapon out of the backfield.
Right. So in the UK, the over under is 11.5 yards.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll take the over. Yeah, take the over.
It's not many. It's like one good play, isn't it?
Yeah, take the over. So he had 250. He had 200. His first 2 years they targeted him 35 times in the first season, 37 last year. So he had 29 catches last year for 259 yards. Yeah, I just think. I think it's going to double. He's going to double that.
Yeah,
I really do.
I could see them getting him on one of those screens, like you say.
Yeah,
busting one out, even if it's just one play. 11.5 yards does not seem.
Or just throwing to him out of the backfield. I think sometimes, just taking 5 yards and getting him the ball in space and letting him do his thing, 5 yards turns into 10. So, I'm excited about that. Should we do a segment, what we're not excited about?
Go on then. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to be negative.
Well,
I don't know. I'm not excited that Abe Lucas still isn't healthy, and I'm crossing my fingers he's going to be okay.
I've got a couple.
I will say this: I'm not excited that Chris Haynes didn't beat out Bradford.
Yeah,
that's
disappointing.
But that's about it.
For me, I'm not looking forward to the Geno Smith discourse this year. I am not. I can already see it, like lines are being drawn, and it is going to be another online battle. I can already see this. And the other thing is
but those are fun, Rob. It's sports entertainment.
I find a lot of things fun, like people arguing and shouting at me, saying that I hate Geno Smith because I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Is not much fun.
Why do you hate him though?
Do you know what I also am not looking forward to? I wish he would get off Twitter. Like he did this thing like this week.
We scrubbed everything.
Yeah, well, it was the thing when he tweeted Dan Orlovsky, because Dan Orlovsky had actually done a video saying what a great throw, and then Geno Smith was harking back to an elite list he did where Dan Orlovsky did not include Geno Smith, right? And then he deleted that about a day or two later, and you're thinking, just stop doing this. Like, stop. I just don't want the quarterback of the team I follow getting into Twitter battles. Is that too much to ask?
No, it's not. He needs to get off it. They all need to get off it. Every athlete, but he needs to get off it. And he needs to stop with the cryptic stuff. And everyone says, well, he does that every year. I don't know if he scrubs his social media account every year where he doesn't include anything Seahawks related, but he scrubbed his social media account of all Seahawks related stuff the week that Garofalo came out on this show with a report that his camp had reached out for a contract extension.
How did it feel to set the news agenda for that week, by the way?
And then I left, and then I was out. I was out of my road. Yeah, I was like, hey, Garofalo, you take it all.
Everyone was talking about it. Like every article I read was linking to the interview, and every radio station was talking about that Mike Garofalo had said this on your show. So you basically brought that to the news agenda.
But then he like scrubs everything, and then people are like, well, it's not related. How do you not?
Yeah.
It feels related. I mean, so I'm with you. I think he spends. I think the one criticism for him is he spends too much time on it, and then he spends too much time talking about how good he thinks he is.
Yeah,
you don't need to tell people like how good you are all the time.
But do you think it doesn't help that he's so active online and that there are a lot of people online, some prominent people online, whether they're in the NFL or in the media or just fans with big followings, telling him that he is absolutely amazing all of the time, and then you have people push back on that, and he's probably reading everything. I don't think that's healthy.
I'm with you. I think it's a problem. I think he's wasting his energy and time being on it, and it's not good. Yeah, you don't need your starting quarterback on that stuff.
Yeah. But, I think we've got Russell Wilson once liked one of my tweets about drafting Jonathan Stewart. So I do think that perhaps Seattle has had a problem with this in a while. So maybe they both needed to get the hell off social media.
How do you think, let's wrap up with that. How do you think he's going to do, Russell Wilson?
Probably not very well. I mean, I don't have any I know there's a lot of people who have ill feeling to Russell Wilson. I personally don't. I think it's time for us to move on and let bygones be bygones. And I think that my memory of Russell Wilson now is the guy who lifted the Lombardi Trophy and gave me the most pleasure watching the Seahawks. The creativity and the not knowing what's going to happen next, to the extent that he was a lyric in an Eminem song 10 years ago, should be the thing that remember. But I just get the sense that I think the Steelers they're one of those things. I don't really know why they're ranked ahead of Seattle in power rankings. Like, they have an aging defense and an offense that doesn't have many weapons, has a young offensive line, has, brought in Arthur Smith to try and sort something out. And I'm just not sure that either of the quarterbacks over there are going to get it done.
Final what do you give? Just let's go on the record, and then we'll play it back if we're right, and if we're wrong, we'll burn that. We'll burn the tape. I'll say, I got 10-7. I think 10-7.
I'm going to go 11-6.
Oh,
and another. Go. I think a spanking this weekend. By the way, I think this is going to be a handsome win.
Good
against Denver. I'm going for that.
I hate the Donkeys. I hate them more than anything. God, that's just putrid franchise, and F. Mecklenburg and F. Elway and the Three Amigos and all those idiots, their idiot fan base. I wish they were wearing their throwbacks, though. We are, though. God, they're beautiful.
Wow.
Here's the thing. Why? What's the stupid rule about wearing them twice?
Well, you can wear them 3 times.
But why? Why can't you wear them anytime?
But I think they're using the green ones instead on one of those 3, which is why I think. But the thing is, Puck, is because I know that you're in the same boat as me. You want them to go to them permanently. I think they are gearing up to announce this at the end of this season. Like, the coach has been. Have you noticed that the coach has been wearing the throwback stuff all summer? John Schneider is always wearing the throwback stuff.
Do it.
And then they announced it's the Niners game.
Yeah.
And then just this week, they just randomly go, oh, by the way, we're going to wear them in week 1 as well. They know that. And by the way, I am leading the charge on this, because every time the Seahawks tweet about it, I reply to them saying, when are you going to announce that this is the permanent switch? And I'm hoping that this pressure from across the Atlantic is gonna sort of nudge them. And I encourage others to join me in this crusade to pressure the team on social media to make the permanent switch. And then they could have like an alternative Navy jersey. That's fine. But let's have the throwbacks because they are so nice. They are definitely a top 5 uniform in the NFL.
The best uniform in the league. And wait until they go with the road whites.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be even better. You're the best. Next week when we do it, Rob, just for our audience, Rob will be joining us on Tuesdays throughout the football season as we go live with the programming starting next Monday. But nothing else changes. Same Seahawks content. Be sure to check out Rob's YouTube page, Rob Staton Football. Please follow him on X at Rob Staton, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Go read all the work there. The post-game show, tell everybody about the post-game show coming up on Sunday.
So as soon as the game finishes, we go live. So if you check out Rob Staton Football, or one word, you will find it on there. And if you could subscribe to that, then you'll never miss anything. Perfect.
Subscribe right now, the Rob Staton Football Show there on YouTube after every Seahawks game, right? Not just the Sunday games.
Every game, even if they kick off at 1 a.m. over here. Every game.
Lord, you are a maniac, man. All right, Rob's brought to you by Superior Linen Service every single week. Family owned and operated since 1926. Committed to delivering the highest quality products and services to the greater Puget Sound area. Big thanks to John and the crew there. Get a free quote today at suplinen.com. Give them a call, 253-2636. Speaking of YouTube, please subscribe and like here and comment on our YouTube channel. Also on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And, of course, all content up at pucksports.com.